Yeah, I think Airbnb is dying slowly. I believe the future is going to be worse before it gets better. Economically, disposable income-wise, it's going to do even more poorly. So I just made the transition from assets that people want to assets that people need. I'm all in on an asset class that I think is just going to be here for a long time, man. I think that's the truth. It's just going to be here for a long time, and that's affordable housing.
Welcome back to Unleash Success. I'm your host, Corey Corpodian. Today I'm here with the king of co-living real estate, Mr. Sam Wegert. Sam, it was actually the first guest on the Unleash Success podcast way back when, because he started a chain of martial arts schools. As a successful entrepreneur, he looked for more freedom in his own life and stumbled upon something he titled co-living. Co-living has granted him significant amount of freedom in his life. He is the master at this with almost 200 doors under his name. And Sam's here to teach us what co-living is, how it can help you achieve your financial freedom, and how you can invest in it today. Sam, welcome to Unleash Success, man. Welcome back.
Dude, I'm so excited for this podcast. Welcome back. It is good to be back. Did you ad-lib that, or was that? That was good. That was a great intro. Great to reconnect with you over the last couple of months. And, you know, this is actually technically our third podcast because the second one didn't film correctly. So we're in a vibe, man. This is just going to keep on going. I'm excited.
We're cruising. We got a lot of knowledge to cover. And now I know a little bit more, but I'm going to definitely register and watch your course to be able to learn even more about co-living.
All the listeners need to know that Corey registered for my course, but is so busy, so hardcore, so just grabbing life big in so many areas of his life. He's like, Sam, got to be honest. I didn't do anything with it.
I'm going to get there.
I love you, Corey. I said it telling you there.
I told you got to start the course at 3:00 in the morning. That's my free time.
That's right. Okay, I'll make an adjustment just for you. My next course will be at 3 a.m.
Move all 300 participants to 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, please.
Exactly.
Okay, so Sam, first off, you know, people have invested in real estate. They've heard about house flipping. They've heard about house hacking, remodeling, buying and appreciation. But co-living's different. What is co-living, and what are you doing today to make money?
Co-living, in the simplest way to explain it, man, is you take a single family home, and instead of renting it to a single family, you rent it out by the room. And so that's it. It's like, if anybody's listening to this and they've ever had a roommate before, that's co-living at the simplest form. And it really has two huge benefits. One, it solves affordable housing, and it provides price points. It puts price points on the market that just did not previously exist, because, you know, we can rent a room for $800 in cities where a lot of times a studio apartment is $1,600. So we're literally bringing in a price point that did not previously exist. That's about half, approximately, of what a studio apartment would be. And then the second big benefit is, obviously, when you rent out your home to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or even 9 individuals, you are now doubling, tripling the rent you can get. So as an investor, you're becoming financially free a lot faster. That's co-living.
It's a great explanation. And it's almost like apartment buildings, right? I mean, that's the same theory. You know, you build a bunch of apartments, you're renting by the door. There was something that because this is the second time we had to do this podcast, and I'll never forget when you told me that you took a single family home that rents for about $2,000 to the normal single family, but you're renting it and you're getting about $8,000 or even $9,000 a month.
That's crazy.
Can you go into more detail? Because that is an astonishing number. I mean, that would set most people up right now to be financially free, just that one house. So what did you do specifically to be able to rent? How many rooms do you have in that house, and what are you charging for rent?
When most people get into real estate, you know, I know my mentor said, hey, Sam, you can probably retire when you have about 300 to 400 doors, because you're looking to get, you know, $100 a month cash flow. So you might even need more than that, depending on how much it costs you to live every month, right? And he said the rule of thumb, my mentor originally said the rule of thumb is you get $100 per month in cash flow from every unit you buy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just crazy. And for me, even hearing that back then, it felt crazy. It felt too big to actually go after. But Corey, you're 100% right when you're like, wait. There's a strategy where you could make several $1,000s a month per home that you buy. Now I only need 2. Now I only need 3. And I've at least reached some level of financial freedom. So what I love about co-living is it brings financial freedom down to the everyday person. Like really, truly, like it's not a huge leap. Like granted, you've got to learn some things and you got to understand some things, but it is not a huge leap for someone listening to this to get 3 great co-living homes, cash flowing several $1,000s each every month. So that's the setup. And I'll talk about the numbers, but that's what I want people to understand is the power of this strategy to help people become financially free.
And we can get into that strategy real quick. I want to ask you too, I'm big on financial freedom, and I think that is so important. And you talk about what it is for you, but how did you first start co-living? How did you get into it the first time?
Like a lot of people who do co-living eventually, they start by house hacking, which is just you buy a home because you can put 3 to 5% down using a primary residence loan. And so that doesn't take a lot of cash. Like it's not that crazy hard to save up that amount of money. And if you don't have that amount of money, you can actually receive the down payment as a gift. It's from somebody. So you can borrow it or you receive it as a gift. And then what's going to happen is I just lived in one room and I rented out a few rooms and I was living for free and making a little bit of money. So that's called house hacking. House hacking is when you live in the home and rent out rooms. It becomes co-living when it is purely an investment strategy. You are not living in the homes. You are doing this to become financially free. And so my start was pretty simple. My start was just, I went on this journey of, I bought a 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo in Charlottesville, Virginia, where the University of Virginia is. Real popular school, one of the best business schools in the United States, Darden School of Business. And I would rent to a couple of college students and I would live in one room, 3 bedrooms, 3 baths. Perfect setup. I didn't think about this as an investment strategy in that point in my life. But then I moved. I was building, as you know, Corey, I was building a chain of martial arts schools at the time. So I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, bigger city. And I just wanted to buy a house because I remember my mentors would say, don't rent because every dollar you spend in rent is just gone forever. There's no return on that, right? Other than you living for that month. So I bought this house and I remember going in, and I'm one of 8 brothers and sisters. So I got a big family. I'm used to a lot of commotion around, and I move into this house. And the first night I stayed there, I remember thinking, it's too quiet. Like, I don't want to live alone.
Yeah.
So I didn't start renting rooms out of necessity. I started renting rooms just because I wanted some people around me. And I rented that house to 3 other guys. It was me and 3 other guys. And we had a blast. We just had this really great time. Like my one roommate, Marco was his name. I'll never forget him. It's like a decade and maybe more than a decade ago. We would talk about girls all the time. And we would just, he would do projects around the house. It was just like he became my bud, Yeah. We had a lot of fun together. And then one day I'm on a walk and I was with one of my other friends who was a vice president of SunTrust, of one of the local SunTrust banks, which is with a big bank, merged with BB&T, made Truist. And he says, hey, Sam, how much are you renting your house out? I know you're renting it by the room. And I said, I don't know, man. I think if I count myself as one of the renters between the 4 of us, between what they're paying me and what I would pay if I was a renter, it's probably close to $2,850. And his jaw kind of dropped a little bit. And he was like, really? He goes, wow, man, that's crazy. You're doubling the rent. Because he knew numbers better than I did at that time. He goes, that house that you're living in to a single family would only rent for $1,300. And I was like, wow, that is kind of cool. So I went on this journey of going from like, okay, 4 people, what if 5 people could live in a house well? What about, and then I'm going to buy another house the next year because every year you can get a new primary residence loan. And then I went, what about 5 people? What about 6? What about 7? What about 8? What about 9? What about 10? And so these massive houses that we're talking about, where that cash flow thousands of dollars that rent for $8,000 or $9,000 are usually these 10-room homes that we've converted into 10-room homes that normally would rent for $2,000 to $3,000, somewhere in there. And we're renting them out anywhere from $800 to $900 a room. And we're renting them out 10 rooms. So
yeah.
Easy math. That's $8,000 to $9,000. Now, some rooms are smaller, so we rent them for a little less. Some rooms have a private bath, so we rent them for $1,100. So there's an average there of $800 to $900. But that is, in essence, how I got into this strategy.
When I was living in New York City, the rents were outrageous. And this is back from 2006 to 2013 is when I lived in New York City. And, even when the world was burning down in 2008, 2009, they didn't really lower rents. They just said, hey, we're not going to raise rent. So you're
Right.
sitting here trying to get a 2-bedroom for $4,000 in 2009, 2010 in New York City.
Crazy.
Nobody can afford this stuff, right? I mean, we were in school and it was just, okay, what I'm going to do is we're going to put up this fake wall. And they had a door frame. They even had a little window. And that's, essentially what we did just to make it affordable. I never would have thought, back then I wasn't, and I was studying, so my entrepreneurial brain wasn't firing on all cylinders, but what an incredible, way to just go, okay, what if we do this at scale?
Yeah.
So how do you take a single family home, which is, typically we'll say 3-bedroom, 2-bath. How do you take that single family home and turn it into a 6, 7, 10-bedroom home to start making these returns on co-living? What's your strategy?
Yeah, I always like to start with the principle. So the principle goes like this. We're in a housing crisis in America. Any economist that you talk to will agree with this, and they will tell you that we are somewhere between 6 and 10 million affordable housing units short in America. Not 100,000, 6 to 10 million units.
Wow.
And so if we have that, so I'm going to start by saying that. Now I want to transition to a concept that people learn when they study real estate. It's a concept called the highest and best use principle. So what this is this is how cities a lot of times plan their zoning rules. It's how they determine where to put commercial and residential and all these different things. They say, here's a piece of land. What's the highest and best use for this piece of land? Now, I've taken that concept and I apply that to just one house. So I walk into a house and I say, if we're in a housing crisis and people need rooms to rent, what's the highest and best use of an unused dining room or a rarely used dining room or an extra living room in the basement or just a basement in general? That's just a big room that maybe has one big pool table in it. And so I take that concept and I say, well, the highest and best use is to turn it into more bedrooms to help solve affordable housing. That's how I think about it. And so what we do, how we convert a home into 10 rooms is simple. We just take every bit of square footage that's in that house and we convert it to an additional bedroom. So if there's a dining room, it becomes a bedroom. If there's a living room, it becomes a bedroom. You might say, Sam, aren't you just cutting up the whole house that way? Well, we look for homes that are already a little bit cut up. That already are, we call it, technical term here, boxy. Not really technical. Like it's a boxy home already. Kind of one that was built in the 80s or the 90s are perfect because they, open concept homes weren't all the rage back then.
Right.
So we're looking for a home that's boxy. We always keep a common area. So I always keep one space, usually the kitchen, and one space adjacent to the kitchen. That can be like a co-working space, a place for people to eat, a place for people to commune, a place for people to hang out. So we always keep that so that the house has some of that integrity. But every other bit of square footage, including sometimes even the garage. I walked a home the other day. We're going to convert the garage into a huge suite with a private bath and a loft. Like it's going to be beautiful. You probably rent for $1,200, $1,300 here in Charlotte, which doesn't sound like a lot to you guys in California, but that's good rate for Charlotte.
Yeah.
Every bit of so for co-living to work, you're looking to maximize number of bedrooms, and the number one factor that's going to determine whether or not how many bedrooms you can get out of a house is just straight up how big it is. So in co-living, we always say size matters in co-living, man. The bigger, the better. I want a 3,000 square foot house if I'm going to convert it to 10 or 11 or 12 rooms. I want a 35. I'm looking for the biggest house on the market that's also not in an HOA. That's what I'm looking for.
Not no HOA, obviously, because there's all the restrictions. So when you look at a house, 3,000 square feet, let's say, I'm not sure what a Charlotte is, but like a 2-bedroom, 3-bath, or 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, maybe, right? Are you looking for a 3,000 square foot house to build walls? Are you going in to add square footage on the outside? I hear the creative nature of doing a garage, but what's your strategy? Like, how much square feet do you need per room?
Well, every state has a requirement on what makes a legal bedroom. And usually square feet is one of those requirements. In Charlotte, I think you have to have a minimum of 80 square feet. Don't quote me on that exactly. I'm sorry, it's not Charlotte. In North Carolina, it's usually a state rule.
80 square feet?
80, so it has to be like 8 by 10 minimum.
Okay, 80. That's
And
small.
yeah, small. Not New York small, but small, right? Yeah. And then the one in New York sounded even smaller than that.
Yeah, it probably was actually,
Yeah. So, but that's the minimum. I mean, they're just saying like, hey, legally you can't have a 7 by 7 and call it a bedroom. It's got to be minimum 8 by 10, which is small, but it has to have 2 forms of egress. So you got to have a wall, a window to get out if the place burns down. There's like some different requirements that every state has to make it a bedroom. So you want to obviously follow those at a minimum. Like, don't go below that, of course.
Right.
But what our formula really is, let me give your listeners a formula for how to determine how many rooms you can get out of a house based on the size.
Perfect.
It's really simple.
Yeah.
If you bring me a 1,500 square foot house, I guarantee you I can get at least 4 rooms out of that house. 4 rooms plus a common area.
Mm-hmm.
Every home. If you bring me, and then every 250 square feet that home is bigger, usually means I can find a way to put another room in that house. So the formula goes 1,500 is 4, 1,750 is 5, 2,000 is 6 rooms. Now, I never will look at a home usually that's less than 2,000 because I want a minimum of 6 rooms.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
2,250 is 7, 2,500 square feet home is going to be 8 rooms, 2,750 is going to be 9, 3,000 is going to be 10, and you kind of on and on it goes. Now, that's not 100% accurate in every case, but 98% of the time, that strategy is accurate. And it just basically says, look, if there's enough space, I can find a way to put the walls and the closets in and the doors in that I need to get the number of bedrooms that I need. So that's a kind of a quick and dirty formula that people can use to say, okay, I have a house I'd like to convert to this model. It's 1,750 square feet. Great. Minimum 5 rooms. Sometimes you can eke out another one just depending on the layout.
Mm-hmm.
A minimum 5 rooms.
Okay. So I know what people are thinking. They're saying, all right, you turn a 3-bedroom house into 7, 8 bedrooms. You got 8 different people living there. How does all this work? Like, what are the restrictions with the community? I mean, we said no HOA is something you got to look for.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the mistakes that somebody might make trying to put this many people into a house?
Well, the biggest mistake you can make when you're doing co-living is just not having systems in place that keep the co-living homes clean. 3 things you need: clean, quiet, and safe.
Okay.
And those are the 3 things you got to do consistently in order to scale co-living. So clean is really simple, right? Clean is you got to have systems where people contribute to the cleaning of the common areas. And if they don't want to, they need to be able to opt out of it for a fee. But that's how we do it. We have professional cleaners coming in. Keep in mind, if you've got a house that's spitting off several $1,000s a month in cash flow, you can afford to pay a cleaner once or twice a month to come in and clean the common areas and just give everything a nice, good refresh. We also make it very clear that there are no personal items allowed in the common space. And if our cleaners come in when there's personal items, they literally throw them away. It's that serious. They'll put them in a box, leave it for a week. Then if it's there the next week, then they'll throw it away. But like the common space is you move your stuff in, you have your laptop, and then you take it back to your room, right? So that's clean. Quiet is like you don't want a TV in the common space because you don't want to create tension there, right? Quiet is you have headphones hours like you might at an Airbnb that's in a neighborhood, right? You want to have quiet hours where everything moves to headphones, right? And then safe is really key. Safe is like you need cameras. We put cameras even in the common areas, right? We put cameras on the outside. You want to have locks, professional locks that are keyless entry locks. We even have these locks now where you can use your thumbprint and get into your room. It's pretty high tech. It's pretty badass. And you just want to make sure that you're really vetting your tenant super well, just like you would before you rented anything, right? If you're going to rent out your car, I got a buddy who owns a McLaren that he rents out. I'm like, man, before I'd let just some random person on Turo rent my McLaren, I'd want to make sure they're a really good person, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of how I think about with co-living. It's like you're still vetting your tenants. You're doing a full background check. You're doing a credit check. You're doing an eviction check. You're going through this process. And that's really, really, really key. So if you do those 3 things and you have systems in place for all 3 of those things, And there's other systems too. There's systems like labeling every shelf in the refrigerator to ensure that they know where their stuff is and they know what to clean out when they leave the place. The labeling the cabinets, labeling, just having good labels on everything is like simple and basic, and everybody should do it. But once you get some of these things, co-living takes a little bit to set up. But once you get it rocking and rolling, once you get it set up, once you get the systems implemented, now you're off to the races, and now you just have to kind of monitor the system, and you're cash flowing thousands of dollars a month. That's the key.
Why would somebody want to live in this space? I mean, it sounds a little, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, it sounds a little crowded, right? Like I've got this kind of tiny living space. I really only have my own room. What's the big advantage that you're providing for people with co-living?
Well, I was going to make a joke because I have this. I have this one guy who he had his tenants turn the common area into a strip club. So he's like, man, all the neighborhood dads were disappearing into this house on the end of the street. He's just, the way he tells the story is so funny, and I just recently had him on my podcast, so that story just popped into my head and I couldn't help but laugh. No, that's a terrible example of what can happen. And frankly, to be totally honest, it wasn't even a co-living home. It was actually a single family home that he rented to this lady, and she ended up turning into this strip club. And then the whole reason he got into co-living, because he's one of my good co-living buddies, the whole reason he got into co-living was because he's like, I don't ever want a home that I ever rent where I can't get into the inside at any moment. Because obviously with a single family home, you can't just go walk. Like, they have rights of that home. They can't just go walk. You can't just go walk in your home. So the reason he loves co-living is because as the landlord, you have the ability to just walk into the common space at any time. That's truly common space. You can just come on in.
Right.
They can't just barge into their room necessarily, but you can come into the common space, check out the house, make sure it smells good, make sure things are going well. So he liked it because he had more control. Anyway, that's where my brain just went. Like, that was just like my brain went there, and I couldn't help but smile.
No strip clubs in co-living, please.
Yeah. So biggest advantage. No. Man, I mean, I think it's economical at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like for your listeners, and maybe you do this too, just to think about, like, I know it's 1:38 here. So what is it there? Like 10:38 or something? 10, 11, 12, 1. Yeah, it's 10:38. So I want you to think about where you're going to go today. Unless you're working from home today. But I want everybody to think about where you're going to go today. You're going to, are you going to go to the store? Are you going to go to Target? Well, if you go to Target has hundreds of employees that make between $15 and $25 an hour. Well, then you're going to go take your car to the repair shop. Great. They got tens and tens of employees that make between $15 and $25 an hour. Then you're going to go grab an ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's winter, so maybe you're not grabbing ice cream, but like, you're going to grab an ice cream, and they make between $8 and $15 an hour, you know?
Right.
And then you're going to go to, and then Amazon's going to drop something off at your front door, and Amazon has thousands and thousands, and tens of thousands of employees that make between $15 and $25 an hour. And then you're going to go to an airport, and you're going to fly to come see me, and we're going to hang out. And then, like, airports have tens of thousands at every airport between service workers and plane and all that. They make 15. So when you really think about it, does anybody wake up in the morning and say, I just can't wait to live in a co-living house with 6 or 7 other people? Well, not necessarily. Now, I think if you do it right, and it's got a good community in it, and you're bringing the right people together, it's not a bad experience. It can be a really beautiful, amazing experience. In some of our homes, we'll send pizza once a month or something like that, and they get together and they watch WrestleMania together, and they do activities together, and so it does become a community. Now, it doesn't always happen that way, but it can if we've done a good job vetting your members. But ultimately, these people that make $15 to $25 an hour in any market, there's hundreds of thousands of these people around the United States. There's millions of these people in the United States.
Yep.
And they just cannot afford in most major cities to rent a studio apartment plus utilities with their after-tax income.
It's funny you say that, because I was talking to some of my assistants. I still work. I still moonlight, you could say, as an orthodontist. I'm still working. One of them was talking about her husband and kid live in their family's house. And I was just thinking to myself, wow. And that's like a tiny bedroom. And, this is them, and they're saving up to get their own place.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people don't realize how much of a struggle it is when, you've got 2 people working, decent income, but like everything is so expensive today. I mean, how much did you pay for eggs this weekend, right? Like milk is,
Yee.
I got to buy 2 cartons of milk for my daughter all the time. And I'm like, $7?
Yeah.
Like, what
Yeah.
am I buying here? So
Yeah.
things are getting more expensive. And
So true.
if you wanted a studio apartment, it probably would cost you $1,200 to $1,500 where you're at, but you're able to knock off a couple $100. I mean, that's people spending money. That's their ability to
Yeah.
buy gas and groceries. So
That's right.
I completely agree with it. And then from, you're solving a problem, which is great. But then from the investor side, for people who are listening to this, and they're like, man, okay, I want to get in on this. I want to get in on a little extra $2,000 cash flow. And I'll tell you a real quick story. I bought my first, not my first house, but my first house that I lived in, that I bought in Newport Beach when I first moved out here. First 6 months moving out here, I was like, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to buy a place. It's a townhome close to the beach. I was like, perfect. I'll buy it. 3 bedrooms. I'll rent out each room, kind of like what you were talking about. And I didn't think I was going to live for free. I just said, all right, I'll make enough where now I own it and I got a couple roommates. Of course, my wife loves this story because I actually met her 6 months later and the roommate idea went out the window and she became my roommate. And then, of course, we got married. But for a number of different reasons, biggest one being my daughter, we ended up moving out of that house and to be closer to our in-laws. And it was at a time where the market was booming. And it's like, if I sell this place, we will have a ton of equity. But if instead of selling it, what if we rent it out? We had rented it out through Airbnb in the past. And then we did it for a summer and we remodeled it and, it was good income. So I said, all right, let's try this. The day we got our first renter in there and we're cash flowing positive, I was like, you know what? Maybe we'll go back there at some point in time, many years down the line. But why would I want to? I'm making money off of this every month. And I'd already, unfortunately, had to put a lot of money in to fix things up. So I'm not worried about putting a new roof in because I just did that. Right. So like there's always expenses that come up. But for the first time in my time owning that property, I'm making money off of it.
Yeah.
And every month that comes in like cash flow. Because I've talked to other people about investments, crypto, stocks, and even flipping homes. But that's a job. You always got to work for it. And I'm not saying this is not a job. I'm just saying you want consistent cash flow. As an investor, maybe you can walk us through some strategies of how we can get that first co-living home.
That's a great story, though, by the way, man, because it is true. When you have, around here, we call it the power of one. First property changes your identity, especially when you start renting and you see some cash flow and you're like, wait, this person that's living in my house is buying this house for me.
Yep.
And that's why it's so important to start, no matter what age you are listening to this. I mean, younger is better, right? Because you're paying your 60-some-year-old self with a free and completely free and clear house, right?
That's what I always said. I always said, they were like, why are you buying this place? And it wasn't to live forever, but I said, if I want a beach house when I'm 50, is what I said, I might as well start paying for it when I'm 30. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad after I bought this house. And I was like, oh no, did I mess up? Did I ruin it? But I bought it in a great location that could always rent. I was like, the goal then became, all right, let's live here. And then when we shifted to renting it out, that was the game changer. It was and I've been investing in real estate for years, but it was such an eye-opening experience because I was able to finally cash flow.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Let's talk about some ways people can get their first co-living home.
Yeah.
And some strategies for that. And I'll cover 3 big ways right now that you can do it with practically zero money down. The first way to do it with practically, this is not a zero money down strategy, but it's practically a zero money down strategy, is to do what we've kind of already discussed, which is to buy it as a primary residence. And primary residence loans, according to Warren Buffett, a 30-year mortgage is the best debt product in the world. So if it's the best debt product because it's fixed for 30 years, you can't lose with it. If interest rates go up, you're locked in at a lower rate. So congratulations, you did good. If interest rates go down, you just refinance to the lower rate. Like, you can't lose with a fixed 30-year mortgage. It's an amazing product. Everybody should have more and more and more of these, in my opinion. So you can use a primary residence mortgage. Now, if you work for the government, if you work for there's these credit unions that are called state credit unions or whatever that can give 0% down loans. If you're in the military, you can get something called a VA loan, which is 0% down on a primary residence, but you do have to move in.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to move into that house that you can move in and rent out rooms immediately, or you can do what you did, which is a really smart play. You move in, you had your girlfriend there. You don't want to live with a bunch of other people while you were living there with your girlfriend, but then you rent it out when you leave. So that's kind of being one step ahead, and that's awesome. So that loan is amazing, and you can basically get in for 0% or very little money. I mean, it's just there's down payment assistance programs. There's all kinds of ways if you just Google or ChatGPT ways to get that first property that I'm going to live in. But the key is you got to live in it. Now you could lie and say you're going to live it and not move in, but that's pretty shady, and they're actually cracking down on that. So I wouldn't recommend that. But that's a great strategy. Now the second strategy you can use to get your first co-living home with zero money down is to borrow the down payment. So we call it just raising capital or getting a loan from someone. So you could go, if you don't want to move into it, you could go get a normal loan. There's these loans out there called DSCR loans. And without going into them in too much detail, they're basically just the easiest loan to get in the world. And you do have to put 20% down. So you got to put a chunk down, you get the home, but you can go out and you can go talk to a couple of other investors and say, look, I'm going to do a co-living home. It's going to cash flow $2,000. And I need to borrow $100,000 for the down payment of the home because I don't have it, but I'm going to run it. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to fill it. Or we're going to split the cash flow or something like that. And again, there's a million different ways and strategies. And I teach people in my program, like different nuances to that. It's probably beyond the conversation that we have time for today. But in essence, that's the model. It's I'm getting someone to give me the money for the down payment, and I'm going to give them some cash flow for that. But I'm going to take on the risk of owning that home and bringing it in. They're just more of a silent, not a passive investor, but some sort of joint venture, right? Or they are silent. They're just giving you like a loan, like a friend would give you a loan. So you got number one, using the primary residence loan or some version of it. That's key. Number two, you've got raising the capital, actually just getting a loan from a buddy, a friend, someone close to you to put down on the down payment. And the third strategy to get a property with zero money into it is, frankly, this one's my favorite one. I've got a buddy who has bought 48 homes, co-living homes, mind you, co-living homes in 18 months using this exact strategy. I got another friend who I just flew out to see in Colorado Springs who's bought 6 homes in the last, I don't know exactly what timeline, but he just bought his 6th one using this strategy. And it's called PMP. It stands for Private Money Partnerships. And what it is it's similar to number 2, but it's different in that someone's not giving you a loan. You're actually going 50-50 on a house with someone. So it'd be like this. I come to you, Corey, and I'm like, Corey, I know how to do co-living really, 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 really well. Without me, you can't do co-living. Without me, the only other option is to go get 4% in a savings account somewhere or a CD. And you're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. I'm going to give you 8% plus we're going to partner on this deal. You're going to bring all the money because I don't have any. You're going to bring all the money, but I'm going to bring the deal. I'm going to bring the management. I'm going to oversee the rehab. I'm going to do all of that. And we're going to be 50-50 partners. And you might say, well, Sam, why would anybody do that? That's one person would be bringing a lot of the money. But without someone with that knowledge of how to do co-living, this person can't get as good of a return. And so a lot of times we see this being kind of a match made in heaven, where you're partnering with someone, you split the cash flow and you split the equity of the home, and it just can work really, really well. So you've got primary residence loans. That's a way I recommend everybody get started. Then you've got, private money lending. Sometimes we call it PML for private money lending, which is basically someone just giving you a loan. And then you got PMP, which is private money partnerships. And that's frankly my favorite strategy because both sides get to own something. Both sides get to really come to the table with something. And I think it can be a match made in heaven.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know from what I did learn about your course, and by the way, we'll include a link to your course in the show notes. The website is scaleyourrealestate.com, right?
www.scaleyourrealestate.com. We do a program where we just deep dive for 5 days. You have to be fully committed to it, unlike some people on the show.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, I couldn't help them. Yeah. But it is frankly it is a lot. It's an hour to 2 hours a day, and we're kind of like deep diving into the strategy.
And it's completely free though, right?
And it's free. Yeah, it's a free event. It's a lot of value. So many of our mentors have been like, Sam, do not do that live anymore because we just did our 35th one.
Whoa.
And yeah. And we were like, we like doing them live. So we do them live and they're fun and you can do Q&A. It's a blast of an event.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And but one of the things I was going to say is I know your like premier program that you do out of that, which is a paid program, of course, is kind of like a, you know, if I'm a big investor and I'm like, I got a lot of money. I got over a couple $100,000. I want to invest with you. It's a program where you say you basically would do a lot of the work for us to get us set up in co-living. So you've got a couple different tiers of programs, one where you can do that completely. So I feel like if somebody was listening to this, you know, obviously you can do the free course, which you can learn about it, do it all on your own. Or we can even just go to you and be like, hey, can you help us get started?
That's right. Yeah, so many people would come to me and they'd say, Sam, I get this concept. It makes sense. I too want to take a bet on affordable housing. Like, I'd love to invest in affordable housing because I think this is going to be around forever. Would you do it for me? Would your team do it? And I was like, no. It's too much work. Like, no, it's a lot of work. There's some nuances to figure this out. And then eventually we said, well, maybe we will. And we charge for it, but it's we finally had people push us so much that we just decided to take on a select few clients for that like higher tier. We call it the done for you program, which is pretty intense, but we do a lot with those students.
I love that. I'm thinking about, all right, I want to do this. I want to jump in. We talked about ways to acquire a property. I get my first property. I know you talked about safe, clean, quiet, right?
Quiet.
Looking at that though, I'm like, how do 8 people park in a 3-bedroom house, right? You know, what are some of the major areas that you've got to overcome? Like when you're scoping out a house, we talked about no HOA, but what should you be looking for to make sure you get the right first property?
Yeah, I'll give you like 5 big things that make up what we call the perfect co-living home. So one we've already addressed in this episode, it's square footage. We're looking for 2,000 square feet or bigger, 6 rooms or more. I would never do less than that. You just don't need to. And if you do, a lot of times the juice isn't worth the squeeze. You're not generating enough cash flow to overcome the fact that you're going to have more nuances to managing this strategy. So that's number 1, square footage. No HOA we've already addressed. No extra crazy amenities. This is number 3, by the way, that cost a lot of money. So like no pools. You're not looking to throw a hot tub in here. You don't want a jacuzzi. You don't want, like, you're just looking for basic housing. This is workforce housing. Another thing that makes up the perfect co-living home is to be in a city that's co-living friendly. You might say, well, Sam, how do I know? Well, it's a little nuanced. You can call the housing authority, you can call the zoning department, you can call the city, but you don't want to be in a city that's kind of like out to get co-living. And there are not many of them because co-living is generally accepted around the United States. And frankly, most lawmakers are paving the way for it to be easier and easier. So that's not a huge deal, but you definitely want to kind of have a temperature before you go invest, you know, $100,000 in a home or even $10,000 in a home, like whatever. So co-living friendly service score. And then, parking. We didn't mention parking, but that's a great question, man, because parking is probably the next thing that we look at seriously. Now, we always are looking for non-HOA neighborhoods, which means you can probably add a little parking pad to the left or to the right of the driveway if you need some additional parking. We look for a lot of street parking. We love corner lots because then you can street park on the 2 sides of the house and nobody really cares. And then you also want to be close to public transportation. If you're close to public transportation, you don't even need that much parking because a lot of these people that are living in these homes, they don't own their own car. I say a lot. A third to 50% of them don't own their own car. And another portion of them, frankly, just are traveling at different times. So everybody's not there at the same time. That's just the weird part about this. You can go by at 8 o'clock on a home that you think everybody should be home. It's 8 o'clock. Everybody's off work. And there's one car in a 10-bedroom house. And you're like, where is everybody? And it's the truth is like someone's at grandma's, someone's with their girlfriend, someone's working second shift, someone's working third shift, someone's someone's gone, someone's out of town, someone's traveling. It's just like it's a little ecosystem that's happening in this home. So you don't have. So our formula is simple. However many people you have in the home, try to have 2/3 the number of parking spots for that home. Now, obviously, if you're in New York City, that completely goes out the window. If you're in San Francisco, we've got one of my clients has 450 rooms in San Francisco. He owns the largest co-living company in San Francisco called Vibe Living. Out of like 450 rooms, he's got like 4 parking spots. Like out of all those rooms, because like nobody
needs
cares.
it. Yeah.
Nobody needs it. But in like the Houstons, the Dallases, the Jacksonvilles, the Austins, the Charlottes, the cities where like you kind of got a car to move around because public transportation sucks, that parking is something you really, really, really need to consider.
I like that rule, 2/3. Yeah.
2/3. Yeah. So 9 people, 6 parking spots. And that's not in the driveway. That can be a mixture of street and, you're just kind of, sometimes we'll even take a little parking map and draw it out. Like room 1, you're always on the upper left-hand corner of the driveway. Room 2, you're in the street next to the mailbox. Room 3, I mean, if you want to get that detailed, you can set it up and then there's just no confusion. So that helps.
You mentioned that some cities are more friendly to co-living. What are some cities that you find? You said San Francisco is one. You're out in Charlotte. What are some other cities that people might look for that are friendly to co-living?
Well, pretty much every city is at some level friendly to co-living. Every major city. Mm-hmm. And then rural areas usually don't care. It's just a matter of understanding the specific zoning regulations of that town. Now, we have a legal strategy that we use that helps us play a little bit more in what I would consider, my lawyers call it a good faith legal argument for why we can operate, even if it seems like it's in contradiction to the zoning laws, right? And that legal strategy at a very high level is, I'm not leasing this house to anybody. I'm actually owning the home in an LLC. I'm leasing it to another LLC. So if you were to ask me, Corey, how many people are you leasing your house to? I could honestly and authentically say, men, I'm leasing my house to one other person. An LLC is considered a person. That was some Supreme Court ruling a bunch of years ago. It's like it's a separate, complete entity. It's considered a person. It can get sued. It can go bankrupt. It can do everything a person can do, basically. And so I lease it to another LLC. And that LLC is a membership agreement company, meaning it has hundreds of members. All my people are members of this company. And they're members because, think of a membership like a country club. They buy a membership to the country club. They buy a membership to my co-living communities. And then they come and they can go and they get access to a room. And they get a bunch of other benefits with the membership. So we're like a membership company. And that's a little bit of our legal strategy that we use to operate with larger homes and jurisdictions that maybe normally wouldn't allow that. Now, it's not a get out of jail free card in every situation, and I'm not trying to get on your show and give legal advice, but it does support and it does help.
Had to put that disclaimer in there for sure. I got you.
Yeah. Blink.
So when you're looking at some of these things, though, I think about what happens if you got a problem, right? That you got a tenant who is always making loud noise. You got a tenant who's always parking in the wrong spot. You got a tenant who, I don't know, puts all their stuff in the fridge and takes it up. Whatever it is. Yeah. I got to imagine there's a million things that could go wrong with this. How do you control that to create that type of safe, comfortable environment for your renters?
I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's pretty simple. It's like, this is one of the benefits of using membership agreements. You're setting up a relationship with this person that's not traditional tenant-landlord relationship. That's in essence what you're setting up, which means you have the ability to terminate their membership if they break the membership rules. And so we use that pretty forcefully when and if we need to. We'll say, hey, you shouldn't be in here anymore. You're doing this. Of course, there's a warning. Usually it's 2 warnings and then the third strike, you're out kind of thing.
Okay.
On all of these different things. And that could go for if you're playing your TV too loudly when you shouldn't be, to if you're smoking in your room, you're puffing on a joint when you shouldn't be, and it's like filling up the house with weed smell. So like those types of things. And again, we're in North Carolina. I know in Charlotte, that's like, I mean, I know in California, that's commonly accepted, right?
Yeah.
But over here, it's still illegal, right?
Oh, it's still illegal over there. Yeah.
And technically in North Carolina, I think it is. But, my point in saying all that is there's a system for it and you've got to be able to terminate them. I'm sorry, not terminate them, terminate their membership agreement.
Right.
Big difference.
Yeah. When you said you had cameras in there, who gets access to those cameras? Is it just you as a management company, like to the common space areas, or do the tenants get access? Like, does that feel weird for people? Like, does somebody come in here and be like, I don't know, I'm being watched or something?
Yeah. Well, most of the time we just sell it to reality TV shows and we have a lot of fun watching it. But that's it's a side source of income. No,
This is going to
mostly
be a reality TV show soon.
somebody came to me the other day. And again, I lived in co-living homes for 13 and a half years. So I don't have it's some of these issues that some people listening to this. Here's what I'm trying to say. Some people listening to this episode might go, that sounds cool, but it also sounds very nuanced. It sounds like that's a lot. But I'm actually okay when people say that because it just leaves more for us to do because yes, there are some codes that you have to crack, I call it. Once you crack those codes, this strategy, you set it up and you rock and roll, and now you're providing housing. It's almost like you're renting out an 8-unit multifamily building.
Mm-hmm.
Which has a few more nuances, but it's multifamily, right? And a single family with single family debt, which is better debt, and single family housing, which usually appreciates better. So all of that to be said is, you've got to be able to let them go from their membership, and we keep very strict access on the cameras. I mean, and you're not allowed to put a camera in any area where there's an expectation of privacy.
Of course, yeah.
But in a common area with 7 or 8 people living in it, it's fine, right?
And we didn't address this, but I know, like, there's got to be something you're doing because say you come up with 20% to buy a single family home as an investment property, but
Yeah.
now you're talking about adding rooms, walls, maybe even bathrooms. What is your strategy to are you coming up with that cash yourself? How do you make sure to be able to, like, because what if you need, how many rooms do you need even for a bathroom, right? Like, how many bathrooms are you putting in the house? So you're adding a lot of infrastructure. Where are you getting the money for that? And what's your strategy to make sure it all fits together properly?
That's a good question, man. The bedroom to bathroom ratio that you got to keep is 3-to-1 at a minimum. So 3 bedrooms sharing 1 bathroom. Now, in a perfect world, you do 1-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're doing some ground up construction because we want to test, we want to build 1-to-1 because you can do it from the ground up. It's a lot harder to convert a home to 1-to-1 like that. So I say all that to say, there's many different ways you can obviously raise that capital if you want to raise the capital. A strategy that we use that's pretty simple is we ask, when we negotiate to buy a home, we ask the seller of that property to pay for the rehab of the home. So we could say, look, as part of our negotiation, we'll give you your asking price. You're asking $400, we'll give you $400. But in exchange, we want you to do these things in the home or pay the contractor to do these things. And here's an invoice for what it's going to cost. And so they might be like, okay, cool. Sounds good. It's $30,000, it's $20,000, it's whatever it costs. That's a strategy we use called an invoice authorization. It can keep a little bit of cash out of the investor's pockets. So you keep more of your cash and kind of, allows the seller to take care of it as part of your negotiation. So we do, that's a strategy you can use. You can go out and raise the capital if you'd like to.
When you have the seller pay for it, though, I mean, they're not paying out of their pocket, right? Like, I mean, why would I do that? Why would I
pay at closing? Yeah, it's one of those. It's a good point. So it's the same thing. Like, like have you ever negotiate for a house and you're like, hey, before I buy this house, I want you to fix all these things.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
it's that.
Okay,
and a lot of times there's a back and forth between the seller and the buyer. Now there's a specific way to do it to get like the bigger chunks of money, not just a small chunk. But a lot of times, sometimes the seller might go, hey, I don't want to fix all these things. By the way, you're supposed to close in a week, 2 weeks. How about I just give you $10K and you guys fix the things? So it's that same back and forth. It's just we're talking bigger chunks of money. It's like, hey,
yeah,
I'm going to pay this for the house.
Are you paying more than their asking price for the house? Is that how you're getting?
Not necessarily. You're not necessarily paying more than their asking price, but you might give them their asking price.
Mm-hmm.
And they're expecting 10% off of that. And you negotiate what that is. Hey, I don't want a 10% discount. I just want you to take care of 10% worth of stuff in the house. That's $40,000 on a $400,000 house.
Right.
So that's something that and again, some banks won't do it. Some lenders don't like to do that because it comes out as a chunk and it can't come back to you. Like you as the buyer, like that money can't be funneled back to you. Like that money's got to go towards the house. It should go towards an invoice. It should go towards a contractor. But if you structure it correctly, it can be done. That's actually a really powerful strategy. I'm glad you asked about that.
Well, because I mean, you're talking about coming up with 20% down, then you got to remodel. You got to make sure you got 3 bedrooms to 1 bathroom. You're talking about walls, plumbing. Right. I mean, I've remodeled a house a couple times and it's a lot of work sometimes. And it can take a couple months too, sometimes too.
Yeah.
When you look at this strategy, just going, what is your expected vacancy rate? Because when I think about this, I think about multifamily, and multifamily, we look at a vacancy rate. Once you've remodeled it, like the time you buy, you got about a month before your first mortgage is set to, you got to pay it, right?
Right.
And so you
Right.
got a month of room. What's your timeline and expectation to get people filled in those rooms? How fast are you doing it?
Yeah. Man, I mean, it's such a nuanced question. It just depends on like location and how close to a bus stop it is and how big the rooms are and how many. I mean, it's very new, and what your price point is. Like, did you go too high on the price point? Are you in a good sweet spot? I mean, there's so many variables that determine whether or not something is rented. It could be time of the year. Honestly, like people don't like to move in December. They like to move in January. They don't like to move during the summer, but they like to move in August. Like, it's just very, very, very. I mean, we target an 8% vacancy. That's what we underwrite to.
Okay. Yeah.
Last year, we probably were close. We probably were higher than that. Actually, I know we were higher than that. And that wasn't because the demand wasn't there. We were getting hundreds of inquiries. It was more because more because operationally, my property manager left in the middle of last year and I brought in a team and rebuilt the whole team and all of that. But, nationwide, I think we're seeing between 8 and 12% vacancy. That's kind of like an average nationwide that I would say. I mean, it's not, there's other people out there that do have more data on that than me probably, but that's what I would target.
So when you get this set up, are you expecting, and I know it's a little nuanced, but what's your goal? Like to get it filled within 3 months of purchasing it? Like okay. Like,
yeah, you really, it's our goal is to get break even within a month after it goes live.
Mm-hmm.
So if it takes a month for the rehab and then you go live, let's say you go live in a month, you want it to be break even. Because when you're break even, at least your mortgage, all your utilities, everything's covered. Like it could take you, like you're good. The house is being bought. And then everything beyond that is going to be profit. So that could be 4 rooms. That could be 5 rooms. But like you're trying to race to get to that point.
Right. So depending on how big the house is, that could only be half the rooms. And
that's right.
You mentioned utilities. Do you guys include utilities in the price for rent?
You almost have to, because otherwise you almost have to with that many people and they're coming and they're going and they're this. I mean, you're not going to switch any utilities out. It's pain in the butt to try to break it up into payments. I mean, it's just, yes. My recommendation is for co-living, include utilities in the overall price and make it a one fee for them and then they pay everything.
Do they pay it included in the rent, or it's like, hey, it's a $50 utility fee?
It's usually included. We just usually include it as in our marketing. It's like $800, everything's included. $900, everything's included, kind of thing.
And you're kind of undercutting like by $300 to $500 what a studio apartment would be.
And then once you add in the utilities, now you're undercutting it even more,
right?
Because they would be paying.
Do you include things like Wi-Fi?
Trash, the highest speed Wi-Fi you can buy. I mean, we usually put in good Wi-Fi with good routers because you have a bunch of people,
Yeah.
We've got a ton of that. Water, sewer, furnished common area. We lock the thermostats at a certain temperature so that the gas, if we're heating with gas, that's a little bit more stable.
We've talked a lot about co-living real estate. Yeah. I kind of want to get your take on Airbnbs, because I know previously, like, you do own some Airbnbs, but you're phasing out of that.
Yeah.
Airbnb, I saw it. I had all these friends talking about they were buying homes in mountain towns.
Yeah.
We'll just Airbnb it and we'll make money. We'll use it when we want.
Right.
And I feel like those markets are completely saturated now. I just went and rented an Airbnb in one of the mountains out here in California, Big Bear. And there was, easily over 100 that would meet our needs. And I just couldn't believe that there were so many. And it's January. Of course, the really nice ones that are done really well, those ones still are doing well. But it was just everybody had their place up for Airbnb. And I feel like that's, increased supply, not necessarily an increase in demand. And now we're seeing like the market shift. What are your thoughts on Airbnb versus co-living?
Yeah, I think Airbnb is dying slowly. It's dying slowly, partly due to inflation. And Airbnb is based on disposable income. So average daily rates are down. Average occupancy rates are down across the United States. And I believe the future is going to be worse before it gets better. So now I don't know what you believe, but if it's going to get worse before it gets better, economically, disposable income wise, then it's going to do even more. It's going to do even more poorly. So I just made the transition from assets that people want to assets that people need. And, several of my Airbnbs lost money last year. I mean, part of that was because they were in Asheville and there was a hurricane and a bunch of crazy stuff happened in Asheville that was
Right.
pretty out there. But, I'm all in on an asset class that I think is just going to be here for a long time, man. I think that's the truth. It's just going to be here for a long time. And that's affordable housing. Airbnbs are like hotels. They have a lot going on. It's a lot of maintenance. It's high cost to rent. And and I agree with you. It's a very saturated market. So I would not be advertising for anybody to go into that market right now. I do not think it's good.
Well, I appreciate the honesty. I mean, most people don't like talking about losing money. So, I mean, when you say I lost money on my Airbnbs, and obviously you can't control the weather, but,
Yeah.
Things like location,
Yeah.
but it's just something that, because you'll see it, right? Of course, because I type in Sam Wegert and, co-living real estate into my computer. Now I get all like the ads that talk about co-living. And then I got guys talking about Airbnb. We had 7 Airbnbs, scaled it up, and now we're retired. And I'm
Yeah.
like, really though, is that still working for people? And I agree with you. I don't think
Yeah.
it is. And I do think things might get worse before they get better.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're saying go to what people need versus what people want. Because
That's
people,
right.
when you need it, you always need it. And
That's right.
you'll figure out ways to afford it.
And not only that, man, but every city in America is trying to get rid of Airbnbs. Like even mountain towns are trying to get rid of them because they don't have housing for the service workers. Even Asheville, where my wife and I have all of our Airbnbs, like they're trying to ban them.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Steamboat Springs is trying to ban them, right? Steamboat Springs couldn't ban them. So what they did is they levied a 29, don't quote me on the exact number, but I think they levied like a 29% like occupancy tax or some BS tax on all Airbnbs. Like just like, so if your profit margins were 20%, like boom, gone because they levied a tax. That's happening all over. That was in Steamboat Springs because my buddy owns a really big apartment in Steamboat Springs. But yeah, man.
I'm actually going to Steamboat. Well, we'll see how things go. I might have to, but I'm supposed to be going in a couple of weeks. My buddy also owns a place out there, and he was grandfathered into the Airbnbs, where he can do it. They manage everything. I got to ask him about that. I don't, because make a pretty good, income off of it. But if you tax 30%, there's your entire profit. What's the point?
Exactly. Your whole thing's gone. Exactly.
When I look at the Airbnb model too, out here in Newport, I had an Airbnb, or I had a license for short-term rentals is what they used. After a while, I said, we're not going to rent it out short-term. This was like, I thought we were going to stay there. We were remodeling it. So I let the license go. And in that time period, they actually capped the number of licenses that could be applied for.
So that was probably a valuable license.
Yeah. You live and learn, right? But okay, I'll tell you this though. The truth is, especially if you're going to have a nice, expensive property, with Airbnb in an area that is high traffic, high volume for a lot of big families, these people would come in, nice people, so many people, and they would just destroy the house over time.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was renting to a single family with 2 kids. It was like, hey, we're renting to 3 families with each 2 kids, and they're all trying to shove it all in there. So things break a lot. Blinds break, lights break. You get scratches all down the walls, beds. I could not believe some of the stuff that was broken.
Yeah.
And, after renting it. So I knew that I wasn't really going to want to go back into short-term rentals. And if I did, it would be at least 30 days. Because people, they take care of it more. Right.
That's right.
And with co-living, you look at that, they're not coming in there to rent for 30 days. They want to live on their own. They're long-term tenants typically.
Yeah. The reason Airbnb got so big, man, is because it is such a sexy play when people talk about it. It's like, buy this house in the mountains, use it whenever you want. It's $1 million and it'll cash flow. And it's like, well, how do you compete with that? Like, I want to buy a second home. So it is a sexy, sexy play. And frankly, I fell for it. I've got 9 second homes in the mountains that I'd love to stay at all of them. My wife and I do, right? And when I say I'm usually referring to my wife and I. And it's like, yeah, but eventually you don't go stay at them all, right? So the dream is the dream, and it's not always that way in reality. And frankly, when we go to stay at our Airbnbs, like you said, we're usually fixing stuff. So we have a rule now that we don't stay at our Airbnbs because we're like, Sam's walking around with a screwdriver the entire time. And my wife is like, just supposed to be a vacation. Why are we here? Like, let's rent a place next time. And I'm like, that's exactly what we're doing. So
Nice.
it's kind
Yeah.
of funny, the dream is nice to talk about, but in reality, in actuality, it falls short, man. It really does.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
experience. In my experience.
No, and I think that you can make anything successful. Timing is important. Strategy is important.
That's right.
I think timing right now for Airbnb it's not the best timing. I think shifting to something like co-living is a better strategy. Sam,
That's
this
right.
has been fantastic. I wanted to ask just a couple like questions about you. As an entrepreneur, when you're trying to create this life of financial freedom, you choose this asset class, but it's not easy to grow. It's not, you talk about nuances and little bumps in the road, but I know that there's tough times ahead for you. Like, and I know we met at Date with Destiny, which was, many years ago,
Yeah.
and you're into personal development. How do you stay positive? And, if like somebody's doing a strip club in one of your, your co-living places and you've got these problems, how do you guys manage, the mental stress and keep thriving? Because you're on
Yeah.
fire, man. And I love it.
Yeah. Well, the strip club one's easy. You just go check it out and see if it's any good. But that is, yeah. No, but seriously, not yeah, man, it's a good question. I was talking with a friend this week and I was just sharing that like there are times that I go through where I think we all have a devil on our shoulder. And sometimes it's whispering in our ear, and sometimes it is effing yelling as loud as you possibly can, right? And sometimes sometimes you're paying a lot of attention to it, and sometimes you're not paying a lot of attention to it. And so I'm not sure I've fully cracked the code, but I think, for me, um, I've really this last few years tried to just embrace the devil that's on my shoulder, because I have tried to get rid of him, and I haven't seemed to be able to like completely eliminate him. Him, her, whatever gender this devil on my shoulder is, that wants to whisper doubts, right? That wants to tell me that I'm still not successful enough. That wants to compare me to everybody else that I come across to. That wants to just say it's all gonna fail and you're just gonna end up on the street anyway, right? Which, ironically enough, I love like camping, so I'm always just like, if I end up on the street, that'll be fun. Like, I'll have a lot of fun with that. So my strategy that I've used that has been successful 80% of the time, is to embrace the devil and just be like, okay, I've been here before. I've heard this before, and you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. One of my favorite stories is about this monk who lived in a little town in India, and he was just the most giving man in the entire world. He would just every day get up. He got up at like 4 a.m. every morning, and he'd go to bed 10, 11 o'clock at night. And all day he was teaching his students and he was serving the town that he lived in. And somebody came to him one time and kind of asked him a similar question and just said, hey, how do you stay so positive? How are you working so hard? How are you doing this? And he was like, well, my strategy is I just stay so busy serving people around me that I don't even have time to think about that stuff. Like, and I'm paraphrasing his answer. He said it way better than that. But I just think that that's a little bit of my strategy, is embracing the devil on my shoulder. And at the same time, like, putting one foot in front of the other. Like, you keep moving forward, and life has a momentum to it. Life has a flow like a river. And so I think if you move, you get the insights. Yes, you'll go through the low times, but it's when you stop. It's when you get stuck. It's when you hunker down and say, okay, is this life even worth living? Or what is crazy things like that, which, I've had a bunch of friends that have gone through serious stages like that. That's when it gets dangerous. Same in paintball. If you sit there, you gotta move. You gotta freaking move. Okay. Right? Like, you gotta move. You're gonna get shot. Like, you gotta keep going. You gotta create some momentum. And so I think for me, momentum is my friend, and I use it and I leverage it. And even if things are going poorly, I'll keep moving forward. And that seems to be a strategy. I'm not saying that's the way, or even that I've cracked that code 100%.
I appreciate it. You kind of answered a question we always ask, is the 80-20 rule. What's the 80% of actions that get 20, or I'm sorry, what's the 20% of actions that get 80% of the results? And it sounds like, embracing the little devil. And I kind of get into that a little bit too, almost like this darkness where it's like, it's not necessarily the raw positive energy. But I also thrive on it at times. Right. And I think what sometimes drives people, and I've done a lot of personal development to try and figure it out and get it. But the other thing too, which is so crazy, I was talking to my dad and he's like, you just gotta relax and, take some time and try to, and I feel like if I were actually to stop working so hard, all of a sudden, boom, I'd get an idea and I'd want to pursue that because that's the personality that I have.
Right.
And
right.
so you can't always, instead of ignoring it, you try to harness it to do good, to be better, and to thrive. So
true
about just like the momentum of life. But beautifully said, man. And wanted to ask, for you, what is going to be your next level of success? What's your goal?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I go back and forth on this one. I think in terms of, if you were to ask me about specific monetary goals, I'd say I've got specific monetary goals for my coaching program. I've got specific monetary goals for, my co-living company and everything we're doing there. And I could share those. I'm not sure that'd be the most inspiring thing, but I think for us, for Rachel and I, my wife and I, who's along this whole journey with me, it's just chasing the seasons and, beginning to build a family is really something we're really excited about. So starting with my dog, who's apparently depressed right now, sitting next to me, just waiting for me to get off this podcast as you can play with me. But that's the next level of success, man, is I love nature. I want to travel more. I love travel. I love meeting new people. I want to come see you guys and just that type of stuff really lights me up.
I love that. Sometimes we talk a lot about business, and the whole point of this podcast was to teach people your strategy, but also a way to become financially free. So you have more time, more availability to do things you love, like spending time with friends and family and traveling. So perfectly put, man. Again, as always, appreciate having you on the show. And let's, get into some co-living real estate.
Let's do it, brother. Thanks for the opportunity. This was super fun. And I appreciate you.